extremely relevant and timely. As you know, the government of the Republic of Kosova, but not only, aims to advance, reform, and modernize the entire state administrative system to serve all citizens, businesses, and institutions with efficiency, transparency, professionalism, and impartiality. Digitalization of services and processes play a key role in this process and increases the transparency and accountability of public administration, enhances citizens' trust in institutions, and improves the overall quality of life for citizens. And I'm excited to dive deeper into it with the help of our expert panelists. Today's session will begin with a discussion where I'll pose some questions to our panelists, and at the end we'll open the floor for questions from the audience. So feel free to jot down any questions you may have so that we have an engaging discussion at the end. Before we begin, I will let the panelists introduce themselves.
Hello everyone, my name is Fatmir Belallari. I am an external advisor for digitalization in the Ministry of Internal Affairs. I am supporting with advice the ministry and also supporting Agency of Information Society to fulfill its own mandate. I have more than 20 years experience on field, on digital transformation, on data technologies and IT service management. Happy to be here in this panel.
Hello everyone, I am Dardan Prebreza. I'm the co-founder of Pretera, which is a company based out of Pristina as well as in Brussels. And I have more than half of my life involved in ethical hacking and information security. And currently I am the head of security services within our company. And I also help to organize the information security community in Kosovo and help whenever I can just build the community and strengthen it more and more.
Hello everyone, perfect. My American name is Abe, my Albanian name is Ibrahim. I live in New York and I'm here to talk about AI. My experience is I worked with Meta for the past 5 years in strategy and monetization. Currently I'm the head of operations for a company called Applause. Based in New York, and then I also have 2 startups which I'll talk about mostly in AI and technology. Great to be here.
And I will also present you Mr. Burim Bivolaku, who unfortunately couldn't attend physically, but he has sent a message for us. So he has been with ICE initially as head of information security for the EMEI region, and then as business information security officer, trading and clearing with a global remit in managing the cybersecurity program all across RCE, including exchanges, trade repositories, and benchmarks. Prior to joining ICE, Burim served in various InfoSec leadership Cisco roles and has a strong background in network security. Mr. Bivolaku holds a Master's in Information Security Engineering from South Bank University in London. So let me present you a video message from our panelist, Mr. Bivolaku, who unfortunately could not join us in Pristina, but in which video he addresses the aspects of cybersecurity.
Dear colleagues, thank you so much for inviting me to speak to this panel, and I am deeply honored and humbled to be able to address this conference and be part of this distinguished panel. And at the same time, I'd like to say that I'm so sorry that I'm not able to be there in person in order to interactively discuss the points in the panel. I wanted this part of my remarks here to present and address 3 points. The first one is the increase in the attack surface. The second one is the lowering of the barriers of the cyber criminals to be able to perpetrate their various activities. And the third point that I want to address is how do we approach building a digital resilience strategy, and how do we address the risk, and how do we cyber risk in particular, and how do we build a strategy to approach responding to these threats. So the first point is in relation to the increase of the attack surface. Now, the digitalization of services has had a consequence of the services being able and closer to threat actors in order to be able to then achieve their and target these services. Digitizing many services whereby resources are being offered online, obviously achieving efficiency, achieving enhanced productivity, etc., as a consequence that those resources are actually closer to these cyber criminals who operate without boundaries from different parts of the world and who are able now to target these services remotely. Taking into account that the implementation of these services requires system, infrastructure, software, etc., who may have vulnerabilities that can be exploited, that does result in an increase of the attack surface that can be exploited by cyber criminals, which can be of different flavors. They can be nation state, they can be organized crime groups, they can be activists, etc. So that's one thing, the first point of reference in my remarks. The second point that I wanted to highlight and outline is that with AI, artificial intelligence, and broader automation capabilities being displayed and being in front of our eyes, especially with the generative AI, advent of the generative AI, deep learning techniques, these capabilities are being exploited by cyber criminals in order to ensure that, generally speaking, the exploitation of the vulnerabilities, perpetrating of the attack, crystallization of the risk is actually able to be done without employing hugely skillful resources, because AI allows, once the capabilities built, to be reused by many others. So the result of the AI has resulted, the advent of the AI, I should say, has resulted in lowering the barrier of the cyber criminal to be able to perpetrate the various activities and attacks. That's the second point. The third point, well, how do we approach this problem? How do we defend against these type of threats? And how do we ensure that digitization doesn't actually ultimately result in risks which cannot be mitigated? And in order to do that, we have to approach risk, cyber risk, as any other type of risk disciplines, which basically means that cyber risk, as any other risk, we cannot eliminate it, but we can control it. And the way to do it is to focus on what it matters for an organization, for a country, for a society, and so-called protecting so-called crown jewels. And to do that, we have to look at what the actual threat actors are, objectives are, and what they're trying to target. What is their intent? And obviously these are different from different situations, different scenarios. So are they trying to perpetrate sabotage, for example, targeting critical national infrastructure? Are they trying to target organizations so that they can extort, perpetrate ransomware attacks or steal data, where they can extort the victims and illegally obtain financial gains? Are they trying to target organizations who hold very much lots of intellectual property, or even countries? So are we trying to protect organizations or ourselves where we have lots of PII, personal identifiable information. Are they trying to target customer data, etc.? So depending on the objective, depending on the intent of the threat actors, then we build and address capabilities to address that specific. So that is a risk-based or a threat-based approach to implementing digital resilience strategy. We have to implement capabilities to enhance our cybersecurity, or I should say cyber defense and cyber resilience, or a broader operational resilience capabilities. Those capabilities are designed to be able to withhold, absorb, adapt, respond and recover to these activities if they become impactful for an organization or for a country. These are capabilities or development of these capabilities needs to be continuous. We need to change our security approach to security culture, how we actually govern the risk, so risk governance, change of the risk governance, and then ensure that capabilities are built to detect, to prevent, and as I mentioned, to respond and recover to threats and attacks when they become impactful. So those are the 3 points that I wanted to address. Hope they are useful and they will serve the purpose of being topics where they can be further elaborated as part of the panel. I wish a successful conference to all of you, and which I do consider as actually building block in the approach of making these changes to how we approach the culture and the governance of the risk. With that, I wish you all the best and a successful conference to you all. Thank you so much.
So I will continue with the questions. I would like to start with Mr. Belallari. Kosovo has made significant progress in recent years in the digital transformation of public administration. Yet, and compared to some other European states, we still need to deliver more. Could you please tell us more on what has already been done these last years in terms of digitalization in public administration in Kosovo?
Thank you, Leah. In recent years, we have seen significant progress on digitalization in public administration. It's very important to highlight the fact that in recent years we had significant changes on the digital ecosystem that impacted digitalization in public administration and will mostly have the biggest impact on digital transformation moving forward. We have seen changes in coordination model. Digital Transformation Committee has been established, chaired by the Prime Minister. Chief Technology Digital Transformation Coordinator has been appointed. Digital Transformation Unit has been created. We have now law on electronic identification and trusted services that opens the road for digital identification, for digital signature, digital documents, better trusted services, digital services. We have a law on cybersecurity that set the legal basis to establish agencies for cybersecurity. Digital Agenda 2030 has been approved. It's a horizontal, cross-sectorial agenda with the aim to transform Kosovo into an advanced digital nation by 2030. We have cybersecurity strategy developed and approved with aim to create a safe and resilient space for individuals, for businesses, and for institutions. And what is mostly related with public administration, we have an e-government strategy 2023-2027 developed and approved and implementation starting. This strategy is focused on digital transformation in public administration, focused specifically on vision, leadership, on technology, skills, and on cybersecurity. Now, if you would like to see what kind of progress we have seen in these years completely on digitalization in public administration, we do have improved service delivery for citizens. Kosova has been proved as a success story. We have, as Mr. said, more than 180 services currently in Kosova, more than 25 we'll have by the end of the year. it has different categories, 22 categories, about 10 million services provided through Kosova. If you calculate by day, it's about 8,000 services per day in average. So that was a very great way of delivering services to citizens, and we will have a mobile application by the end of the year that will increase usage and access for citizens. We have also piloted live event approach. It's a new approach, user-centric service delivery approach, where services are organized around the events that happen in people's life. We are piloting with the birth of a child live event. When the child is born, then immediately is registered on civil registration, vaccine schedule, or other systems that needs to be registered. And this system will be, this process will be completed by this year. We have improved interoperability. We have better exchange of data between institutions. We are using Microsoft Government Gateway. 53 institution systems connected through this gateway. 120 types of different transactions are enabled. All institutions are required to exchange the data through the gateway. Last year we have seen about 16 million transactions on the government gateway. That is 26% increase compared to the previous year. So data is flowing, and that's a good sign of healthy digitalization in public administration. There are other projects that are on the initial stage. I will just mention a few of them. The whole of government portal specification is completed, will be completed, implementation will start and completed next year. This will be a game changer for public administration. It's going to be a single platform for all the processes. It's like an ERP that is used for enterprises. It's a government resource planning for government. It will have a strategy, management, project management, finance management, HR, asset, logistics, load drafting management. All the things that are needed will be in one place, and this will drastically change the way how civil servants and public officials will use the systems. With e-government strategy also foresees to invest a lot into the new infrastructure. So we have an infrastructure and technology in place in order to accelerate digital transformation. We are in the process of assessing national interoperability framework, and we will have a roadmap how we can improve this data exchange layer. We are on process of assessing government network and how to upgrade the network to support the changes that we want to do. We will transition towards cloud services, and data that can be placed into the public cloud will be placed into the public cloud. The rest of the systems will move towards a private cloud that will make our capabilities more scalable and flexible and more secure, and in terms of business continuity and disaster recovery, we will have more capabilities. So overall, we have made very good progress. Lots of energy was spent on developing strategies and starting the implementation. But with things that we have in place, we are in a very good position to fulfill the vision of digital agenda of becoming digital country by 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Belallari. Now I would like to continue with Mr. Prebreza. As we advance with digitalization, our possible attack surface expands. What is the best way to implement cybersecurity measures while ensuring digital services remain accessible for all citizens?
Thank you. So the first thing to do is to adopt a zero-trust architecture, and I think there are some projects going on. So basically, you as a government, but also as a company, you should always verify each new device, each connection, and so on. So if, let's say, an employee, a public servant comes in with their own laptop, I mean, in theory, that shouldn't work, for instance. And the second and more important point here is to have a layered security approach. So basically, if security control fails, then the second one could pick it up. So nowadays, no company, no government should, or no organization should say that they are unhackable. So the question is how fast you can detect it. So every government, every country, even some really secure agencies and so on, they get compromised and data leaks. So basically, the goal is to have several layers of security. So let's say if the firewall fails, then you have an intrusion detection system that will eventually alert you that something happened. And again, I know that the government and the agency that is in charge of this has several of these tools in place, but having tools in place, it's not enough. So one of the next steps is to continuously test those. So basically, either through internal vulnerability assessments and also through security audits or penetration testing assessments. And this can be done obviously internally, but as well externally. And the more often it's done, the better it is, because you can continuously test all your previous layers of security. And we see, let's say, a better success or more secure companies when they have all these in place. And when it comes to, let's say, public services like Kosova, for instance, obviously it should remain, it should be user-centric, but it should also have, let's say, some additional security features that will, let's say, not harden the life of a citizen, but just add security around it. And this would prevent identification theft. So just an idea, there are some malware or viruses that have infected a lot of people, including Kosova. So there are also public servants and so on. And a lot of clear text credentials are public nowadays. And basically, if, let's say, Kosova had 2FA or two-factor authentication enforced by default, these credentials could have been useless. So this could be, let's say, a good way of improving current services and future services. And there are some other countries that they have like a central authentication platform, so you can authenticate using either an application that the government has published, and basically you either enter your phone number or your ID number, and then you will receive a pop-up on your phone if it's done through the phone, and you approve it. So even if there are credentials and they get compromised, you still have control to accept or not that authentication, for instance. So whenever you develop new, let's say, technologies or platforms, or you implement new things, obviously cybersecurity should be part of the development plans, but also at the same time trying to have them as user-friendly as possible. Because the idea is not to make someone's life difficult, but to be part of the flow and at the same time increasing and offering more security. And there are plenty of cases where huge companies, corporations have been compromised, and public data of millions of people. A big case was in the US with Equifax, which handles the social security numbers of all citizens of America. And they got fined back in 2016 or 15 about 400 million US dollars. And 2 years ago, T-Mobile got fined almost $1 billion US dollars because they had a data leakage. And basically the idea is, to avoid such big breaches and leaks. And another concrete example is Albania, when they got hacked by Iran hacking groups supported by their government. and every citizen's data actually has been compromised and leaked. So there was a similar case in Australia with an insurance company a few months ago. So what the government did, they changed the ID numbers of all the affected citizens, because all that data was public because it got compromised. The government decided to update their personal ID numbers for the affected citizens. So this could be something to be, let's say, considered in case of breaches. But at the end, I mean, to have this, I mean, the first step would be to have a centralized system where you have control all over the citizens' data. Yeah, at the end of the day, never trust. Test and verify to make sure that nothing bad happens. I mean, if you have seen, like I think a month ago, a lot of companies got, let's say, paralyzed because they use an antivirus, well, actually an endpoint protection called CrowdStrike. So some airports, even Casco in Kosova is using them. So they were impacted by, let's say, mistaken update that the antivirus sent. So they just created a deadlock situation for the customers. So even with trusted applications you use, especially in corporate and big organizations like governmental networks, test the updates, test everything before deploying, because you can just have an impactful event like that one.
Thank you, Mr. Prebreza. Now I would like to ask a question for Mr. Fetahu. Mr. Fetahu, advanced technologies are progressing at an exponential rate. It's been nearly 2 years since ChatGPT was released, shifting many expectations of what AI is capable of. How do you foresee the role of AI and other advanced technologies in reshaping public sector services?
Thank you. That's a big question. You can write 10 books about it. Okay, where do I start? So, in my experience working at Meta for 5 years, working with AI technology, you see Meta basically doing a bunch of things, right? Prioritization, AI, prioritization, human interactions, decision-making, operations, everything that AI does better than a human, there's no reason to use a human, right? That's where we're headed. A lot of these applications, whether it's decision-making or full efficiency and automation, a lot of that applies to public sector. So I'll kind of talk a little bit about that. Automation. I think there will be a bunch of apps coming on, moving forward, that will basically fix the people experience with the government, right? Today, there are governments that you wait in long queues for some kind of decision from the government, whether it's US or Kosovo. But this is already happening when it comes to automation. There's no need to have a human do, for example, manually manually approve tax filing, social benefits processing. These are all different processes that take so much time. When you can have basically AI drive some of that processing, that saves hours and hours from when it comes to automation for governments. A lot of this will change in my perspective. Legal systems will change. For example, the way you file a lawsuit in the US will change. The way you apply for relevant specific lawsuits. The medical providers are actually using AI in the US, for example, in terms of determining the level of care that a patient needs. Criminal justice in the US is using AI to determine the sentencing potentially for a criminal act, because the law can be very ambiguous. Law can say, hey, you've done this crime, and your crime should be punishable between 5 and 20 years. Well, what is it, 5 or 20 years or 10 years, right? So AI is being used to determine, based on metadata, how the punishment will take place, in what form. So there's a lot of applications that AI is already taking place in the public sector. So this is all automation. You can make a argument whether it's ethical or not. That's a whole different conversation. The conversation about automation is that it's already happening. So I can see a lot of apps that will drive automation conversation between government and people. The second piece I want to make here is the idea of personalization, right? If you go today in your social media, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, what you see in social media and what I see is very different. We have a very different experience because of what you see and what I see. So that's called personalization based on metadata. Imagine the same concept with services that public sector offers. For example, if I am a participant, or not a participant, if I am a citizen of a government and I'm having some type of interaction with government, the government can anticipate what my needs are based on the last interaction. That's AI. AI is understanding and predicting what you need from a societal perspective. ChatGPT, for example, has changed everything the way we do when it comes to conversations. I can imagine Meta is working on this, ChatGPT is working on this, the idea of having virtual assistants, right? If you go today to ChatGPT or Meta, and you can go on WhatsApp, you have a cooking assistant, you have a sports assistant, you have an assistant for helping you with emotions, you have an assistant to help you with mental health, you have an assistant to help a CEO make better decisions, right? That is the future. And I believe a lot of public sector will actually move that way, where you provide services through ChatGPT or some sort of chat agents to actually have open portals with people. The other piece I want to make, the other case I want to make is the idea of predictive analytics. So let's talk a little bit about that. Governments are increasingly, obviously, leveraging predictive analytics for emergencies. What do you call it? Plan infrastructure, resources. AI can do so much when it comes to reading large data sets and being able to provide basically outcome or predictions. So a friend of mine in New York, he's actually Albanian. He has a startup where, if you think about properties, right? Properties have tenants, people who live in those properties. He can use cameras and AI to actually predict the way the person is walking, whether that person is going to fall. Think about that, right? How much data set do you need to actually predict, to be able to say, hey, that person is going to fall within the next 10 seconds. The accuracy, I think, is like 95%. And the severity of that fall is actually, they can accurately target that. So the question is, how do you do that, right? And I think a lot of this predictive analytics is going to become much more prevalent with the public sector as well. So that's kind of the second piece that I want to mention, predictive analytics. Insurance companies, right, they want to save money, so a lot of that conversation is going to take place. And then the third piece that I want to mention with AI is I want to call it AI economy between private sector and public sector. A lot of startups are going to innovate, right? A lot of companies are going to create new apps. The idea is to provide innovation for public sector, so public sector can take this innovation and actually direct it to people. So we're going to see, I think, a whole economy on this next few years as AI becomes much more leverageable and stronger and better. And for example, I have a startup in New York that does specifically working with attorneys. We are trying to change, and it's right now still in development, we're trying to change the whole idea of legal systems in US. I'm not sure how it works here, but like in US, if some type of illegal or legal injustice was done to me, I am eligible to file for some kind of lawsuit, right? That's called class action lawsuits. But the class action lawsuits is very, very complicated. I don't know where to go, I don't know what attorney to call, I don't know what kind of paperwork I need to fill out. The app, only because of AI, what we'll do is basically I go in, I swipe, I match, I apply, all with a single touch. That's simplifying the lawsuits in the United States. So I feel like a lot of this between predictive analytics, automation, efficiency, changing the way people interact with government, that will be the way in the future, and I think the government is to prepare for that.
I would like to go back to the government and ask Mr. Belallari, what do you think are the key steps public administrations should take to accelerate digital transformation while ensuring inclusivity, accessibility for all citizens?
Well, it's important to highlight the fact that digital transformation is not about technology only. It's mainly about people and how you use technology in day-to-day work into the processes. So in general, to accelerate the digital transformation, it will require using proper technology, having digitally skilled workforce, fostering culture of innovation within the organization, and incorporating technology into all the processes to leverage from technology. So in our context, I would say that in order to accelerate digital transformation in public administration, we'll need to have a clear vision and leadership. We'll need to invest heavily on infrastructure and technology. We'll need to improve our digital skills. And what is most importantly, in my opinion, we will need a clear change management strategy and culture shift. Now, e-government strategy addresses all of this in detail. We have a strategy has a clear vision. We have a governance structure in place. We will invest heavily on technology. We will have a whole of government portal, upgrade network. We will have an EID available. Move towards cloud. For first time, we will have a data governance office that will work with data and have analytic and predictive capabilities within the government. So in technology, we are quite good set to have a robust, scalable and flexible technology in place. Now, regarding skills, e-governance strategy addresses the need to improve competences in the public sector, and in two levels. We have a professional level, staff that will drive digital transformation, and we have public officials that will need to have at least some basic digital literacy knowledge. Now, as I mentioned, one of the key aspects of digital transformation is change management and culture shift. It's required that we will have a well-defined change management strategy to clearly communicate what is our vision with the transformation that we want to introduce and what we want to introduce. And leaders should visibly be involved in all these changes, and they should offer trainings and upskilling for staff, and they should foster a culture of digital first mindset, culture of innovation, promote collaboration, agility within the organization. And on the other hand, the public servants, they should embrace this learning mindset. They should continue to learn new technologies, be innovative, and in general have a positive attitude towards changes that digital transformation will introduce. So I think if we take all these factors into consideration, we will have a smooth and accelerated digital transformation.
So we listed the pros, and now we listed the pros, and now we know how we foresee AI. Now I want to know about the other side. So, Mr. Prebreza, AI is increasingly being used for malicious purposes, leading to growing threats of sophisticated cyber attacks. What steps should public administration take to protect itself from the attacks?
Good question. We should ask the AI. No, actually it's right. So more and more cyber attacks have also help from AI. So let's just start with something really basic and stupid. So phishing emails, for instance, are becoming more sophisticated because nowadays they're using AI. And in the past, they used to just use Google Translate it in every possible language that they would target. So if you would receive a phishing email in Albanian, you would still see it was weirdly written. So you would understand it was simply translated from English or some other language. And nowadays, if you, for instance, ask ChatGPT to write you an email in Albanian, it will be almost perfect. So you don't actually need to change much. And just, let's say, it's the most basic example of how AI is being used in phishing. And a common attack that happens a lot that targets private companies especially is called business email compromise, or BEC. So basically what an attacker will do is they will compromise an email from that company and just stay there for months and wait for the perfect moment to change one of your invoices that will be sent to your customer. So just last year, a company here, they have quite some turnover. They send an invoice to their customer in Croatia. I think it was about 50,000 euros. And what the attackers did, they deleted the email and they sent an updated invoice. So it had their banking details that were somewhere in Poland. So basically, the customer in Croatia paid that invoice, but not to the right company, but to the intercepting party. And this kind of attack, for instance, is being improved a lot using AI. And then another big issue with AI are the deepfake videos and audios, so deepfake phone calls that are used for phishing attacks or phishing through the phone. So basically, if you take a public figure that has a few, let's say, videos on YouTube or just podcasts and such, you can train your AI model to have the same or almost the same voice. And an ex-colleague of mine actually made a whole presentation on deepfake videos by faking his friends or colleagues. So basically he would be another person, like visibly and also with a voice. And in some cases it's really difficult to even notice it. And actually there have been already some attacks like this, where a board meeting was held and then some decisions were taken by simply faking the whole thing through a deepfake video. And then you have some, let's say, cheap deepfake. For instance, 2 years ago, Russia made a deepfake video of Zelensky saying that they were stopping the war, but it was clear it was quite a deepfake. And it's used more and more. I mean, we also have seen some videos on social media, deepfake of, the Prime Minister of Kosova. And we will most likely see a lot of similar videos in the upcoming elections. So this will be interesting to, let's say, to fight from, let's say, a truth and veracity perspective. And just one last thing. So some of the tools that security tools that are used by the government, but also from the private sector, are already implementing AI technologies when it comes to detection. So basically, based on your, let's say, on your patterns, like if you are if you start working at 8 a.m., you check your emails and such, and then suddenly something completely different happens, it will get detected as unusual pattern, and then it gets alerted to the right party.
So now that we know all the threats that AI is capable of, Mr. Fetahu, can you tell me what challenges and risks might the government face when implementing AI solutions in public services?
Thank you. Two things from my side. One of the biggest challenges I think that we see a big push now is the idea of fairness, accountability, and transparency. The big push in EU, big push in US. How do we make sure that AI is fair? And what is fair? So that conversation is happening. It needs to happen, especially leveraging AI in the public sector. One thing that we know and is a fact is that AI is not fair. There is bias in AI. The reason there is bias in AI is because data is biased. The reason data is biased is because humans are biased. And we grew up in a biased world. So when someone says there's no bias in AI, that's just not a fact. There is bias in every algorithm or some type of algorithm. This happened a few years in the US where, I forgot the name of the co-founder, but the husband applied for a credit card. He got, let's say, a $50,000 limit. The wife applied for the same credit card. She got a $25,000 limit. They live in the same house, same zip code, same income. She was a woman. Was that the idea? I don't know, but AI made that decision, right? So the idea, obviously, there's a lot of laws now that you cannot make decisions based on certain characteristics that are, we call them protected characteristics. But the idea is that we need to investigate and spend a lot of money and infrastructure to drive accountability and fairness with AI to ensure, especially from a public sector perspective, that there is transparency over that. What else on that? The other part, especially when it comes to obviously like welfare, legal issues, becomes obviously so much more complex. And I do believe that we need a better coordination from, again, the public sector and private sector in this, because there are companies who do this really well. They have the infrastructure. Public sector doesn't necessarily have the infrastructure or the expertise to do this. They pass laws, right? So there needs to be a closer coordination of this. The other piece, challenge that I think is that we all know is obviously data security, which we're talking about. How do we protect data from a governmental perspective? If the public sector cannot protect the data, why would the companies do, or the private sector do that, right? Why would they spend so much money to protect the data? So we need to spend a lot of money and accountability on that. And then the third piece that I want to say is privacy and safety. I'm going to do a little test here. Who thinks here that our data should be private? Who thinks here that our data should be private even in case of exceptions like international terrorism? So what happens today in the world is that if you go to the government, there's different bodies, right? If you go fully private, like encryption, there are technologies basically where you cannot read any more of those messages, right? So if I say something that is a crime, you miss that data signal. And so there's this debate of like what is private, what is safe, right? If someone is a journalist in Syria, I'm just using a country, who is reporting what's happening there on the ground, and he doesn't have data privacy, that person may be dead next day. So we need to have data privacy, but on the other side, we need to have conversations on exceptions, right? They're called exceptions when it comes to international terrorism, anything that happens bad, right? Bad actors. How do you find that balance? And I think that's going to be another challenge, how with leveraging AI to do bad things in the digital world. And I think it's going to be a big challenge between accountability, transparency, data security, privacy, and safety. Thank you.
So, digital technologies are evolving rapidly. I would like to go back to Mr. Belallari and ask, when it comes to the adoption of new technologies, what are the major challenges faced by public administrations, and what is the best way to overcome these challenges?
Yeah, that's a fact. When adopting new technologies, there are always a challenge to roll out with that technology. Usually, I would list a few challenges that we see. We see a resistance to change. That's one challenge. Public officials might resist adopting new technology, and that might be because they are not confident to work with new technology, or they don't have information for benefits of using this technology, or they feel more confident continuing working as they did before. So to overcome this one, again, it requires a clear change management strategy. We should clearly communicate why is new technology introduced, what are the benefits of the technology, and engage public officials into these transitions. The other challenge that we see is legacy systems and legacy infrastructure that we have in place. Technology evolves very fast, and we have a number of outdated systems that is a bit difficult to modernize or to incorporate new technologies on that ecosystem that we have. Solution for this one is to gradually modernize infrastructure and systems, and always to think about having technology that is scalable and flexible, so we stay in line as technology advances. And the last that I will mention is always about skills, digital skills, limited digital skills. usually we have a skills gap in public sector where public officials that don't have sufficient skills to implement or to use the technology. So this can be addressed by having training programs, capacity building programs, cooperation with education institutions and private training providers.
Mr. Prebreza, you talked about the steps that the public administration should take to protect itself. Could you share with us some good examples implemented in other states in the matter and that could also be implemented in Kosovo?
Yes. So one example that I'm well aware because I have some friends working there, but also I used to live in Belgium, is the Cybersecurity Center of Belgium. And Kosovo actually is working through the Agency of Cybersecurity, so it will be similar, but the idea is to do something eventually better or let's say close to it. And we know that the budget will probably not be the same, but then we also have Albania that has invested a lot since the iron hacks and not only. So they have been investing a lot of money into their cybersecurity agency, and this would help to strengthen the governance and to make, to define clear responsibilities between governmental and private sectors. So basically, the government will know what it's due from them, but also the private sector should meet some minimum criteria. Let's say if a private company gets breached or compromised, they should report it somewhere, and then that should be taken care of. The idea obviously is not to, let's say, threaten companies to improve their security or to punish them. For instance, the Agency of Information of Privacy has fined some companies, but not with the goal of, let's say, fining them, but like educating them. And then there are some issues like on the law level that have overcome some of these fines. So I hope with the new Center of Cybersecurity, the Agency of the Cybersecurity, some of these things can be addressed with the new law as well. And then the second key point is protecting the critical infrastructure, basically when it comes to power plants and the national telephony and internet and all these things that are considered to be critical infrastructure should be better protected and having, let's say, a more reactive way in case of an attack of the critical infrastructure. And then the next one is raising awareness and education. So basically, you can do a lot of great things, but if you don't raise awareness and you don't include, let's say, cybersecurity courses and classes into the education system, then it doesn't help much. So basically, to be better prepared for the future and to overcome the problems of today's cybersecurity issues, one way is to raise awareness and education, and then developing cyber expertise. This can be done at different levels, starting from obviously, say, the education on the high schools, and then up to universities and colleges. And then the last point is the international cooperation. So there are a lot of international bodies that they are doing a lot in the cybersecurity space, and let's say strengthening and also improving this cooperation will make Kosovo benefit of
And my last question will be for Mr. Fetahu. Mr. Fetahu, what will be the role of AI in the public administration workforce? How should government prepare its workforce for the changes brought by AI?
I'll make 2 points. One is we need to bring AI literacy to public sector. So what do I mean by that? We all, in the old world, literacy meant read and write. So digital literacy today means being able to understand, anticipate, comprehend, having a deeper sense of something, right? AI awareness is ChatGPT exists. AI literacy is I know how to use ChatGPT every day at work. So we need to bring AI literacy to policymakers. Around the world, we see this trend of making decisions on AI, but then including US. But then those people who have no idea how AI works, they don't know the implications of those decisions. They don't know the intersection of AI with public sector. And we have these decisions, and the companies look at them and they're like, what are you talking about? That is happening all the time. You probably have seen some of those conversations in the Congress and things of that nature. So I think AI literacy is the biggest challenge that the governments have to get better, and bringing that knowledge, whether it is at a local level, federal level, whatever it is, from a government perspective, that helps with policy making and decision making, number one. The second piece is obviously train your workforce from a public sector perspective to understand and use AI every day, because that's the world that we're basically evolving into. And then the third piece that I'll make, actually on that, an example is, I think in US last year they approved a law where the executive branch basically made a mandate where every federal agency in US that is using AI has to appoint a chief AI officer. And it is a mandate now in order to use AI properly when it comes to accountability, transparency, implementation, blah, blah, blah. I believe EU is doing something similar, not sure in terms of a similar mandate. But that's kind of the biggest piece for me. The other piece that I was going to mention is the idea of redundancy, right? It is a fact that AI will replace a lot of jobs, right? It is a fact that AI will replace human redundancy. If you have a human who is manually approving social benefits application every day, that can be done in a matter of minutes, hundreds at a time. So why would we have a human potentially do that, where we can use AI to make that decision and only flag decisions that need human review, right? So that is happening. So the question is, what do we do with that? How do we train those people to do something more strategic, or potentially save money? Instead of paying them 40 hours a week, we pay them 5 hours a week and kind of go from there, right? So there's going to be a lot of removal of human redundancy. The question is, how do we prepare the workforce for that? I saw the other day, we were just talking about it. I went to a doctor's in New York, and you know where they take the intake, you take information, there was no person, there's a kiosk. And the kiosk was a human in California talking to me, and I'm like, who are you? But think about that. Now in the future, you're not going to even have an intake, you're going to have potentially an AI take your information. They know all your information, you check in, you're done, you don't need a human. Same thing 10 years ago, right? We had grocery store, we had people, now we have kiosks. That is going to be a lot of the changes that are going to be applicable. The question is, how do we prepare the people for that?
Okay, and now I want to open the floor for the questions from the audience. Do you have any questions for the panelists? Okay.
My question is for the Fetahu, for to change digitalization in the university. Pyetja jeme është për zotin Fetahu, mënyra e qasjes digitalizimit në për universitete sipas Ministrisë së Edukimit që të aplikohet sa më shpejt, për ndryshe do të jemi shumë brapa rreth digitalizimit. Kosova.
So I can't speak too much for Kosovo because I don't live here. I live in the US, but AI is being taught in the US everywhere. I mean, if you are in university, the first thing the buzzword that comes in is AI. Every engineer today that does software development learns how to do AI, right? So to translate into your own world, you need a program here. You need to create AI programs to basically develop people early on. There are people in the US that start learning AI when they're 12 years old. They're having startups at age 15. At age 18, they're selling companies for $1 million or $10 million, right? Because they're starting early. My point is saying that is you need to start early. You need a program. You need to be able to do that. That's when you bring international experts, which is part of it, right? That's when you need to bring conversations. But also, it's not just up to the government. It's up to you, right? Like, what are you doing with your time? What do people are doing with their time to basically educate themselves and learn and creating awareness? I know people that have started themselves and taught how to develop ChatGPTs, for example, with similar programs, right? So a lot of it is awareness, a lot of it is what are you doing with it, and a lot of it is do you have the infrastructure to be supported with.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Arta?
Okay, just a comment, not a question. There were organized AI bootcamps in Kosova, and we were surprised at the beginning that there were no applications of youth applying it for. So it's a little bit surprising, people saying there is nothing here, government is doing nothing, when in fact government is bringing you the biggest companies in the world and the best experts, and you are not pressing the apply button. So I think it's very important to inform yourself, and as always said, upskill and not wait anyone to knock on your door and ask you to do something, because a simple chatbot will replace you in the next 2 years. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'll just add to that. I just hired 2 people in Pristina for my startup. I went online, put AI expertise. People have a lot of AI expertise in Kosovo, and I hired them, right? So it is a matter of you getting access to what already exists here to do that.
Okay, so Ms. Randir had a question. Yeah?
I have loads, but I'll limit to one because it is such a fascinating area for discussion. So can I just pick up on that point that you said around wider social impact of AI? So say in 30, 40 years' time, what will the world look like? So back to where are we going to have a proper debate about the wider impact? So we can see the benefits of AI, but in terms of social disintegration, in terms of employment, in terms of that bigger social responsibility, of what do we do with our people then if AI is taking care of routine business? It could replace even like local politicians, national politicians. So what is left there for humans in terms of as we face the future, and particularly in terms of guardians of the integrity of the system? I think you gave some examples of that. So just be great to hear your observations on that, please.
I have no idea, but I'll try to answer it. So, I don't think it's as black and white, because number one, there are a lot of things that a human can do that AI cannot, right? We have emotions. I can see a person and respond to that person based on the emotional state of that person. AI cannot do that. We love, right? AI does not love. So it's not as black and white. I do think there's going to be a lot of opportunities, just like any new industry that has revolutionized the way people operate. AI is just another one of those that we're trying to figure out. But there will always be things, and this is a conversation we now need to have. What can we have people do better, right? I can think about strategic decisions. For example, you've heard also the verb of metaverse, right? Metaverse is this virtual world where we go in, and I've done meetings in metaverse. We meet in a virtual conference. We talk about a topic. We had AI, a robot, taking notes versus an actual human. You don't need to go to college to take notes, right? If AI can do that, that's great. And AI can synthesize, but a human can read that and make better decisions. I think there will be a lot of instances where we're still trying to figure out how to leverage our capabilities better versus AI. But to your point, it is to be determined. Obviously, for example, ChatGPT has changed the way we operate in schools, writing essays, a lot of that stuff. But the question is, can we get better? Can we make better decisions when it comes to building better bridges? I don't know, like different analytics, right? I think a lot of it is to be seen, and I think the conversation needs to start now and be better prepared. I don't know what the long-term plan, I guess, would be for that.
Dear panelists, thank you for your fruitful discussion. I would like to invite all the other participants to continue their questions at the lunchtime if we are running out of time. Okay?